Hello and welcome to Buy or Buy, the show where I take a game of my choosing, put it under a spotlight and tell you whether it's worth buying or saying goodbye to. And today we are focusing on Mafia III, the game I actually wasn't interested at all in the slightest when it first got released or first got announced or anything like that. But the more I started to hear about it, the more I got intrigued, especially along with this crime story, and I really am into my crime thrillers at the moment. So I thought, hey, I'll pick it up, give it a go, regardless of the negativity it is being given in the past. And my expectations weren't that high for it, and I was still somehow a bit disappointed with this game, and here's why. So if you're coming into this game thinking that Mafia 3 is going to be a lot like GTA 5 but set in the 60s, you will be disappointed right out the gates. Yes, it may seem very similar to GTA 5 and it may have that open world feel to it, but whereas GTA 5 had a lot of things going for it, it had lots of different things to do to keep the player interested. Mafia 3's open world is very dense, even though it may look like it's sprawling with life, and the things it has you doing in that open world are very linear. They may seem different in the game, but it's actually it is different, but with a just different lick of paint enough to make it seem different to the eyes of the player, and it's very, very repetitive. But what sets this game apart from GTA 5, I feel personally, is the story and the way the story is told. Now, what I mean by the way the story is told is that it's actually told through like a documentary, like looking back on past events. And if you watched How I Met Your Mother, it's a little bit like How I Met Your Mother, where all the events have happened in the past and you get little dribs and drabs of what is going on through people that are in the game telling you. It's a little bit of a complicated process, but it is like a documentary looking back and people telling you these events of what happened and stuff like that. And it was almost down to the sense of if you die in a certain part of the game where you weren't supposed to die, it will cut to a cutscene being like, no, this isn't what's supposed to happen, and then it'll put you back in the game and carrying on from where you left off. And it's very clever. I do appreciate that different style of storytelling, and it is quite new, quite refreshing, and it's good to see in a game like this. And it's pulled off. It is mainly pulled off, and it can get a little bit annoying, a little bit grating at times, but I do appreciate that different style of storytelling. I can applaud it for that. Also, another thing, the cutscenes in this game are absolutely fantastic, which is a real shame on the other hand, because the cutscenes look fantastic, some of the best I've ever seen, almost on par with Uncharted 4, but maybe not as high as Uncharted 4. But when you go into the game itself, it doesn't perform as well as, graphically anyway, it doesn't perform as well as the cutscenes make it out to be, if that makes any sense at all. It looks like a very high-end PS3 game when you're playing in the in-game itself, but it looks PS4 when you're looking at all the cutscenes and everything like that, if that makes any sense anyway. Now, this is where I have to start talking about the negatives of this game, and there are quite a few compared to the positives. Yes, right from the word go, you are drawn into this game and its backstory and who your main character is, and because this is a revenge tale after all. But right after the opening sequence, which is about an hour, maybe 2 hours, the game does take a massive nosedive in all quality of storytelling, and it just isn't really interesting after that, which is a real damn shame, because this is such a disappointing game. To me anyway, because I could see how much potential this had, but the way they executed it and pulled it off is just not good at all. It feels very sloppy, it feels very repetitive in the things that you're doing, because what you're doing basically is you're trying to take over the entire loads of little districts within the area that you're in, and the way you'll do it is you're doing like certain different patterns of repeating certain patterns, if you will, to get to take over that district, like take out a few guys, raid this, raid that, or such and such, and you're doing that over and over and over and over again, and it can get really repetitive and really boring at times. And after that, I was just like, no, I'm turning this off, and I've had enough of this. But comparing that to its stellar opening and the way it handled racism and the way it handled revenge and betrayal, I was hooked. But it's just, after that, it's just not worth playing at all, and it breaks my heart because I can see I was invested, and it's almost taken me straight out of the experience just from like after that opening sequence, and it sucks. But the final nail in the coffin for me really was its controls and how it handles, not just with driving, because the driving is in this game, trying to control a car is absolutely horrific, but it's also your main character, the way he shoots a gun, the way he aims, everything feels really heavy and just really like slow and hard to do, so much to the point where I was stuck on this. I was playing on normal difficulty, and I was stuck on this bit so much because I kept dying and dying and dying, no fault of my own, but it was to do with how slow this game was performed, or the slow this guy was aiming and moving around, like couldn't dodge out the way in time, that I had to lower my difficulty to normal to easy, and I never do that in a game. I feel like that is almost criminal, no pun intended here, of course, but it's just like it really put a damper on the game, and now and combine that with the lack of storytelling, or the lack of the bad storytelling after the opening sequence. It just kind of made me think I've had enough of this, and this is extremely disappointing, and I honestly, it took me right out of that experience, and it made me rage quit a couple of times. I can definitely say that. And just a quick note as well, the loading times in this game are like horrific. They're god awful, because when you die, it has to play a cutscene being related to the documentary style of the story, of course, being like, no, this isn't right, and then it has to load, and then you'll jump back in, and after that you've waited about a minute to get back into this game. I may be exaggerating just a tiny bit, but it does feel so slow, and I honestly, I'm lost for words on this. It's even just talking about it makes me feel a little bit angry. But a couple of things I can praise to the heavens on this game, thank God, is its soundtrack and it's the way it deals with the time period that it was set in and racism. But we'll talk about the soundtrack first. Yeah, absolutely stellar soundtrack for what it has. It's obviously set in the 60s, and it has all the great tunes like Creedence Clearwater Revival, Rolling Stones, etc., etc. And right from the title screen, you are blasted with some Creedence, and you know exactly what you're getting into, and it just the way the songs fit the time era, or sorry, the era of this game so perfectly, and it's a joy to get into a car and listen to the radio every time I get into a car. Even though the car does control horribly, thank God I got some good tunes in the car. Also, because this game is set in the 60s and right after the Vietnam War, it is very controversial in the sense of racism, and it does explain that right from the get-go, that the developers, before you even touch it, when you press start, the first thing you see is a message on the screen saying like, we made this game to portray the time period, and we felt like that if we didn't do it the correct way, it would be racist doing it that way. So you may hear a few naughty words like the N-word and everything like that, because your character is black and he will deal with certain racist scenarios that he does come across, and I have heard that plenty of times, and I have to applaud the developers for doing it like that, because I honestly do feel like that if you're not addressing problems like this from your past and you are merely hiding it, and you're merely like almost ashamed of it in a way, but no, it is I can kind of agree with them. It's like, yeah, it's racist if they didn't do it like that way. If every white guy or white person was happy-go-lucky to a black person, then it would be in the 60s, and it would be a little bit unrealistic, and this is the way it was, and it's almost a bit more immersive that they did it like this. And I'm glad that they showed the message at the beginning, like you will hear some bad words and everything like that. So yeah, great job on that. And because games are a little bit controversial like that, and sometimes they do need I don't know, I just feel like that they went the right way about it, and that's something I can get behind, definitely. So after hearing all of that, what is my verdict? Do I say bye or say goodbye? Yeah, definitely don't get this. I'd say leave this one out for a while. I would say goodbye to this for now. Maybe if you're going through a dry period of games and nothing is coming out and nothing is like interesting you, but this game is going cheap, say for 10-15 pounds, I'd say maybe pick it up if you're interested, because the story at the beginning is good and it might hook you. It's sort of like, I don't know, it's like a mafia, it's mafia sort of style game, and it did interest me to begin with, but the controls just took me straight out of it, as well as the way it handled everything after the opening sequence. So I'd say no for now. Just stay away from this, and maybe get something a little bit better, because there are plenty of other new, better games out there right now. But if you're going, if the market is going through a dry period of games and nothing is coming out that's interesting to you, but this does take your fancy and it's cheap, maybe pick it up, and that is a big maybe. But other than that, stay away from this game. So that is all I have to say on Mafia 3. If you like this video, then please like, comment and subscribe, and share this video around. And if you disagree with anything that I'm saying right now, then please just give me a comment, or I'm happy to start a little debate up with you, and I'm also interested to see what you thought of this game too. But until next time, take care. Bye bye for now.